The consensus is that we have a dire problem. It is just so hard to conceptualize how much debt $35 trillion looks like. $1 trillion is 2.5 times higher than where the International Space Station flies. So, trying to comprehend the deficit that we are running into, we need to be able to put this into a metric like, how do we work away at it? And we still have to maintain our programs, our Social Security, our Medicare, because our senior citizens aren't in a position to have reduced funding on those things. We need to preserve that also for the next generation. But we also, just cannot continue to have omnibus massive spending bills without the accountability that the American people deserve. Fiscal responsibility has always been, the paramount of who I am. And I've seen our company, and through being hands-on, you have to be able to take care of your own before you take care of everybody else.
All right, guys, good Wednesday to you. A lot to get to. This is big stuff, because there's a lot going on beyond the nomination stuff I'm going to tell you about in just a second. Thanks to everyone who came out in New York City last night for the morning meeting live after hours. It was really cool. I put it up on my YouTube page if you want to check it out, but it was fun. I got to meet some people in person that watch on the YouTube stream. Thank you for doing that. We're looking at some other places, probably in the DC area, but hey, you got a big venue and you can sell it out for us and make some, then we'll talk to you. Send us a note in the YouTube chat. Always subscribe, by the way. Hit that notification button. You never know when we're going to go live. Always hit that notification button and subscribe. It's so important. Plus, my free newsletter, SeanSpicer.com, comes out twice a week. It's free unless you want to upgrade and be a VIP and help us out. Or, even if you want to super chat in the YouTube, a few people did that today. So greatly appreciated. All right. We've got two amazing guests today that are responsible, check that word out, for a House majority. I'm going to introduce you to them in a second. And we've got a bunch more nominees I'm going to go through, plus some stunning action happening in Russia and Ukraine. I'll get to that in a second. Before I do, real quick, if you notice that I'm slimming down a little, and you can't hide from the camera, can you? It's because Seb Gorka, my buddy, introduced me to the folks at PhD Weight Loss. And I've struggled for years with trying to get my weight under control. I've done every fad diet in the world, Atkins, keto, you name it, every, intermittent fasting, whatever, right? And the thing about PhD Weight Loss is that you get a nutritionist that has weekly check-ins with you, but gets to know you, what your schedule is like, what foods you like, and builds a plan for you for the long term. It's not a fad. It's about changing your lifestyle, but there's accountability that comes with it. They even give you some starter food with it to help with snacks and things like that. But like I said, they sit down, get to know you, and I have gotten to know my nutritionist. They check in with you regularly. I can text with them back and forth. If I have some questions about some options, maybe I'm going out to dinner and say, okay, what should I choose tonight? Here's where I'm going. And they'll say, all right, stick with this, and this, and focus on this. At lunch, do this. But it's about a lifestyle change. It is so unbelievably different. I'm down just over 5 pounds, which is great because, again, it's about not a quick fix. It's about a lifestyle change. This is the last diet you'll ever need. Call 864-644-1900 or go online to myphdweightloss.com, myphdweightloss.com, and they can set this up for you virtually, and you can have total accountability with your own personalized coach and program. All right, guys, bad news. The U.S. Embassy in Kyiv in Ukraine has shut down. This was just after Biden gave the okay for Ukraine to use U.S. weapons to shoot into Russia, which they had always said was a no-go. So this is a big deal. They're saying it's out of an abundance of caution, but Russia has changed their nuclear posture and basically said, hey, if you attack us, we have the right to use nukes. So this is no joke, as Biden would say. No joke, folks. This is happening right now. And I'm really concerned that Putin says, hey, I want to do something before Biden gets in because I can't do anything with Trump. I mean, look, this is serious stuff. So we're going to keep an eye on this for you. We have what looks to end up being a 220-seat majority. That's not enough, 218 for the votes, right? We've got today two of the people responsible for that from Pennsylvania. They were both on the show. Now, keep in mind, we wouldn't have a House majority, and we'd be going through impeachment, investigation. If we don't have a majority, we wouldn't control the speakership, the committees, whatever. So tonight, we are going to hear from Ryan Mackenzie. He was on the show with us. and Rob Bresnahan. The thing about them both is they didn't just win, they beat Democratic incumbents. This is critical to us gaining the majority. Without them, no majority. These guys were instrumental in this. And so we will have a conversation with them about what the priorities need, what the focus needs to be. But this is key, guys. I'm just telling you, President Trump wouldn't be able to get his policies through if it wasn't for this. And we are now on a razor's edge. Remember, we got 3 of them leaving. Gates already resigned. You got Mike Waltz going in to be National Security Advisor and Elise Stefanik being UN Ambassador. Uh-oh. Yes, we will win all the seats, but they have to have a special election. This isn't the Senate where you can just appoint them. This is the problem. So for a while, we're going to have an issue. We're going to be down, folks. And look, things happen. I mean, I'm sorry. Like people get sick. They've got surgeries, family events, whatever. So we're on a razor's edge. And these 2 guys in Pennsylvania made it happen. And we need to get to know them and know what's happening. Before I do that, before we get in with Ryan Mackenzie, who's going to lead us off, I want to tell you about a great guy. He didn't run for an election. Our friend Leo Grillo. What he did do was he ran to make the world's largest no-kill sanctuary for animals. The guy is amazing. I've gotten to know Leo Grillo, and he's the kind of guy that you like being around because his heart's in the right place for the right reasons, doing the right things. He founded Delta Rescue after he rescued one Doberman, named the dog Delta, and then said, hey, I can do more. And this is not a shelter. It's a no-kill sanctuary for life. They get the help, the support, the nutrition, the veterinary care that they need. So if they're abandoned, malnutrition, abused, Leo Grillo, I take them all. He takes them in. Boom. But he needs our help. That's the thing. This isn't a guy looking for a big government handout. He needs our help. So go to deltarescue.org, check out the video, see what they're doing, see if you can help, make a donation. More importantly, at the top, you see that estate planning kit. Just download it for me. As a favor to me, click on it, download it, look at it, and say, as an animal lover, maybe as someone who's rescued an animal, is this something that I want to be part of my legacy? Maybe you have an old 401k, some stock or whatever, and you can make this part of your legacy. They can help you do it. There's probably a tax benefit. Go to deltarescue.org, hit that estate planning kit, and just look at it. Please, for me, just read it, download it, and pray on it. Consider it. Thank you. All right. Without further ado, I want to introduce the congressman-elect from Pennsylvania's 7th District, Ryan Mackenzie. Ryan, good to see you this time as congressman-elect, not candidate. That's got to feel nice.
Absolutely. It sure does. And thank you for having me back on, Sean.
Yeah, well, I mean, I pretty much am taking credit for it, so I figured it might as well.
There you go.
Hey, yeah,
I will say this. When you win by 1%, everybody's effort helps. So we appreciate everybody along the way. Had a great team on the ground, and we're so glad that the voters responded to our message, which was change. We wanted change in the Lehigh Valley and in our country, and people responded.
Yeah, let me ask you this. I know you're in Washington for orientation. Last cycle, like a Mike Lawler was like a hero because he was a dragon slayer, killed him. You and your Pennsylvania colleagues there are kind of responsible for the majority. New York really put us into the driver's seat last time. It seems like Pennsylvania was what did it now. I mean, you think about where we stand, 220 looks like where we'll end up. You defeated an incumbent. You just didn't win. I mean, there are 3 types of seats, right? You can run for an open seat. You can be a challenger or be an incumbent. And you defeated a Democrat incumbent. When you got to Washington, were people like giving you the high fives, like, hey, thanks, brother, I got to keep my chairmanship because of you?
I think people are very appreciative because there are only 4 Republicans who actually flipped seats this cycle. And so that is the difference. We are the majority makers. So that's a big deal. I mean, only 2% of incumbents ever get defeated in office. And so tall mountain to climb, but again, great team effort, and very grateful that we're being able to have this opportunity now with the House Republican majority, the Senate majority, and Donald Trump back in the White House, because we need real change on things like inflation in the economy, or securing our southern border, all the chaos around the world. All those things need to be addressed, and we only have that opportunity when we have all of those 3 things lined up.
So you're a state rep. Currently, you and I served together on the White House Commission on Fellows, so you're no stranger to politics and even Washington to some degree, I guess. But what have you found since you got here? Is there anything that's like shocking you about the system or the way things work or logistically how things operate that you didn't maybe think about or know prior to getting elected?
I mean, I think you pointed out, I do have some experience both at the state and federal level. So not much has been shocking. But what I do see and what I'm encouraged by is that our conference and the White House are both talking about disrupting the existing system. We want real change. We don't want the status quo. That's what the American people voted for. So now we actually have to go out and enact some of those policy changes in January. So I think that people want that disruption. And again, you do see it. You do see the institutional systems in place that want to just maintain the status quo. And again, we have to push back against that.
All right, I want to get to those priorities in a second. But you are a Pennsylvania state rep. I'm literally watching Bob Casey suddenly try to claw for every vote. The Bucks County election supervisors claiming that they don't have to follow the law. Pennsylvania is not doing itself proud in how they count elections. What is the problem, and will it get fixed?
Yeah, so the law in Pennsylvania is extremely and explicitly clear that ballots need to be signed and dated when they come in the mail. At the same time, Democrats want to try to do everything they possibly can to bail out Bob Casey from defeat. And so they are trying to go around that. They are trying to count ballots which weren't dated, weren't properly cured. And so we heard from a Democrat elected official in Bucks County, a county commissioner there, saying that she was going to knowingly and willfully violate the law to make sure that they count additional ballots that were illegally cast at this point. So it's outrageous. I mean, the state Supreme Court even slapped them down. They're extremely liberal. But what we see on the ground is, again, these kind of desperate attempts by Bob Casey and others to circumvent the system. It's what they did back in 2020 as well, where what they did at that point in time was that they allowed ballots to be counted 3 days after the election, in total contradiction of the state law. And Governor Wolf at the time used his COVID emergency powers to do that, an outrageous abuse of power, so much so that we in the state legislature actually passed through 2 successive sessions a constitutional amendment that went to the voters in Pennsylvania. It narrowly passed to rein in the governor's executive powers because they were so abused there. But these are the types of tricks that the Democrats have been using for years in Pennsylvania. This is just the latest one. I think Dave McCormick is going to hold on. He ran a great race, and he'll be a great asset to us in Pennsylvania as our next senator.
So, but beyond that, do you think, there were rumors heading into election night? Obviously, Donald Trump won by enough that it didn't matter. But going forward, there were rumors initially the Secretary of the Commonwealth had put out, don't expect us to have an answer on election night. It might take a day or two. Did we just mask the problems in Pennsylvania, or are they fixed?
No. So, I mean, look, there are always things that can be improved. But from 2020 till now, we made some serious changes in state government that really helped improve the count there. And again, what we're seeing is now going far beyond the law to try to take these extra ballots and count them. So, but the changes that we made were that, again, we reined in the governor's executive powers, which I talked about. We also changed and updated the law so that ballots, once they started to be counted on election day, the county boards of elections who count those ballots cannot stop. So we saw in 2020 in Pennsylvania that they would stop overnight. And, that's where people become suspicious. When everybody gets sent home, well, what's going on overnight? So we changed that to make sure that once ballots start to be counted, they cannot stop at those boards of elections. So in the case of my race, I was able to go out and declare victory on election night. It wasn't until 1 a.m., but we made sure that they didn't go home at 11 o'clock like they did in previous years and then wait till the next day. Thankfully, that update to the laws in Pennsylvania made it that they had to keep counting up until they were done. So that was the second thing. And then the third thing that we did was we actually passed through the legislature a prohibition on outside money coming into the government system. So Zuckerbucks, people commonly refer to that as Zuckerbucks. That was an egregious abuse of the system in 2020. We passed a law to actually prohibit that. So that, I think, made for freer, fairer elections. So those are some of the updates we made. There are still, again, more changes that we should be making, and hopefully the state legislature will take those up.
So, Ryan, you mentioned you won by a point. That's not exactly a landslide, but it's a testament to your hard work, to your service as a state rep. How do you translate that now going forward? And I know the easy answer. But in political terms, does that mean that you're the folks in Washington are like, all right, Ryan, time to start raising money already. I mean, what do you have to do to make sure that you're positioned going into a midterm to get reelected?
So a couple things. I mean, race like ours, again, lots of factors come together. So we appreciate all the help that we got across the board. We had a great grassroots team all across the district of active and interested constituents who were looking for change and helping us in that effort. But when you're in a position like this one in Pennsylvania's 7th congressional district, it's what we consider an R+2, meaning that it leans generically 2 points Republican. So that is always going to be a contested race. And so we do have to be ready for the next cycle. We're going to start building out our campaign operation immediately. And these things don't stop. Unfortunately, in today's political world, you can't stop if you're in a swing seat or a contested race. So we're going to keep all of those things going. But at the same time, we do have the responsibility to actually govern. And one of the things that we will be looking to do is actually make changes that we talked about on the campaign trail, securing the border, improving our economy. And if you do those things, I'm confident that the voters will reward you when it comes time to go back before them in 2 years for an election. So not only the political side, but we also have to do the responsible governing that I talked about on the campaign trail.
So a lot of people, when they were listening to Pennsylvania be discussed at the presidential level, heard about energy being a big issue, fracking, et cetera. You're from the Lehigh Valley area. I take it it's not as big of an area in Pennsylvania that does as much fracking. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah. So in Pennsylvania, obviously, our energy industry, fracking included, is a huge part of our economy. It employs lots of people, generates lots of revenue for the state. And actually having that resource in state means that while we have higher energy prices than we would like, compared to other northeastern states, we're actually lower because we have that natural resource so close to our customers, so close to energy intensive industries and manufacturers and things like that. So we want to continue to promote and responsibly promote energy expansion in Pennsylvania. That's not only going to help our state, it's going to help the entire country. And what we've seen with the terrible policies that came out of Washington, D.C. over the past numbers of years is that all they did was restrict the access to something like fracking and slow its growth, kind of contain it. And what we want to do is we want to continue to expand, invest in those industries. That's going to be a boon for Pennsylvania. It's going to be a boon for the entire country. And if we can do that, energy is a key input into everything in our economy, not just for energy intensive industries, but if you're thinking about transporting goods to market and the cost of fuel for trucking and things like that. So if we can actually improve our energy industry in Pennsylvania, that's going to be something that's going to help bring down costs for people. And that is a key issue that people are still struggling with.
All right. So obviously you, because of your service in the state legislature, your family business, you're a small businessman, you get those kind of issues, and the district you represent, you've got the issues that are sort of parochial, the ones that you're going to take care of. And you got the Trump agenda that I think, he talks about really reforming government. What are the issues that you want to sink your hands into? And if we did this interview in 5 years or 6 years, what does Ryan Mackenzie want to be known for?
Yeah, so just to clarify, I mean, my mom's a small business owner. I'm not personally involved in the business myself, but what we've seen is businesses throughout the economy, both large and small, have been struggling with the high costs that have been brought on by inflation. That's the massive overspending in Washington, D.C. that has been the largest single driver of that kind of inflation. So we need to address that not only for businesses, but families that are struggling with high prices as well. So partially, that's, again, bringing down the massive spending. It's that energy investment that we talked about, freeing up American energy, and then also just getting our economy moving again. I mean, we've talked about, and President Trump did a great job in his first term of reining in the massive amount of regulations out there. We need to make sure that we continue that effort to attack those regulations that are just so burdensome. When I talk to small businesses, it's never one regulation that is the problem. It is the pile of regulations that they are forced to deal with, sometimes actually forcing those small businesses to hire a full-time regulatory officer, detracting from investing in the business and all the stuff that they should be doing. So taxes, it's going to be a huge issue this cycle, as many of the 2017 taxes are set to expire. So we're going to be looking at that early in the conference, session. We're going to be getting out there doing an update to that tax code through the reconciliation process. So we're going to be looking at taxes as a legislature. The administration is going to be working on regulations. And something that I'm passionate about is continuing to invest in workforce development programs, making sure that people in the economy have the skills they need for the jobs that are out there and available. So those are some of the things we're going to do on the economic front. And then immigration wise is another big ticket item we need to address, and we need to secure our southern border. I traveled there during the campaign. I saw the wide open southern border in Arizona, where literally the wall stops. And it is exactly as has been described. Donald Trump and his administration bought the equipment, bought the poles, could have been installed, and law enforcement there said the day that Joe Biden took office, all construction stopped, and all of that stuff has sat there for the past 3.5 years at that point in time. And so we need to continue that investment to secure our local communities, secure our country, stop all the crime and drugs that are coming in. And they told us that the cartels in that portion of the border in Arizona, the cartels are the ones that run that border. So
were you in Cochise County?
That's correct. Yep.
Yeah, I think we probably had the same visit. As you're talking about this, I'm like, I saw that. I mean, everything that you just described is exactly what I took away from my visit to the wall there at Cochise County with Sheriff Daniels. And I was like, so it's funny. I was literally like, when you were talking, I'm like, I got that. That's exactly where I was. The nice thing I thought about this is President Trump doesn't even have to worry about buying it, because day one, it's literally piled up. He just needs to go, hey guys, let's go. Building permit issued.
Yeah, and what I would hope to see from the Trump administration is he can do a lot to secure that border via executive order. We saw that in his administration. Biden unwound a lot of that, totally reckless, totally irresponsible. So hopefully he can go back in, put some of those things right back in place to help secure our country and our community. So those are the big things, obviously, that the Congress is going to be focused on. And then again, personally, I'm focused on things around in the labor space. Workforce development is something that I'm passionate about. So, I'll be able to, as Republican chair of labor and industry in Pennsylvania, I've worked on those issues for years. So hopefully I can hit the ground running on those things.
Have you tried, you want to be on education or the workforce committee?
Yeah, so the two committees that I've requested are Energy and Commerce and Education and Workforce. Both of those are very important, not only for the district, but for me as an individual. Those are the areas that I've worked on. And I want to be a legislator who can actually hit the ground running, have a meaningful impact immediately. And those spaces I know and I've worked in for a long time. So I could have the.
How does that, just explain to viewers, how does that work when you say you've requested them? How, if someone's sitting there right now, what does that mean? Like like Uber Eats, like you just put a request in, or like, what does that mean? If someone's listening right now and saying, how does that happen? Do you just walk up and hand a ticket?
Sure. So, it's more akin to some of the match processes that are out there for maybe different colleges or, doctor programs, where you basically put out your requests and you get to list a couple of different options, but then it's a match. And there is something in the House called the steering committee. It's a number of members elected from across the Republican conference who do chairmanships and then also appoint members to those different committees. And it's spread out regionally across the country. Leadership has seats on that committee as well. And the reason it's a match, you don't just get to go into what you're interested in or what you're passionate about or have experience in, because it is a match based on where are their openings? Are there members who have retired and moved off that committee? So you try to match it up as closely as possible to what people's interests and experience are, but that's not always possible. So you do have to let those things be known. And again, they do their best to get you on the committees that make sense.
How much time do you think we should do on oversight? For example, we still don't know the origins of COVID. And I think that there's a desire for Congress to now dig through what the last 4 years of this administration knew, when they knew it, what they did, and what they didn't do.
Yeah, oversight is a very important responsibility of Congress. And obviously, we have been stonewalled by the Biden administration on many fronts for the past number of years. So now that we will have an executive branch back in Republican hands, we should go back to that administrative state who made some of those decisions and ask for the documents and do the proper oversight of Congress. It's not only just important to hold people accountable, but if we, again, want to talk about real change, there may be some people or departments or, agencies that weren't doing the right thing. We want to correct those problems going forward. And so that is something very important. So hopefully Congress will not just drop them. Hopefully they're going to continue those efforts on a number of different fronts.
Okay. Hey, Ryan, congratulations. You're welcome. That your appearance on our show previously put you over the top. We'll continue
Every
to have
little
you
bit
back
helps.
on.
We will take every little bit of help that we can get. And so we thank you for having us on. It's always great. You do a great job. So appreciate the opportunity to
All
be
right.
here today.
Thanks. Congratulations. We'll see you soon, man.
Thank you.
All right, great conversation with Ryan, but there's another one, another dragon slayer that put us in the majority. Rob Bresnahan, he represents the 8th district, right? You remember him from the show? He is got a great background because he was part of that union working men and women faction that put Pennsylvania over the top for President Trump. And now he gives President Trump a House district. So I want to introduce Ryan, but before I do that, you guys know I get all excited, jacked up all during the day. But what gets me down? My Beam Dream Powder. That's right. Now here's the cool part. I've loved the cinnamon one. The brownie one's amazing. And just in time for the holidays, I've got the white chocolate peppermint flavored. I was going to try it last night. I didn't. The coconut one, the cocoa cinnamon one was open, so I stuck with that. But I will. Trust me. I do love getting in the holiday spirit, although I do firmly believe no Christmas music before Thanksgiving. That's another story. Anyway, this stuff is amazing because if you've had trouble falling asleep or staying asleep, you've probably tried it all. Magnesium, melatonin, reishi, apigen. I've done them all. And when you take this, and I take it 30 minutes before to bed, take one scoop, put it in water, microwave for 30 seconds, boom, out like a light when your head hits the pillow. I stay asleep and then I wake up feeling refreshed. It's awesome. So if you're looking for that natural way to do it with no grogginess when you wake up, try Beam's Dream Powder. You can get up to 40% off for a limited time when you go to shopbeam.com/Spicer. Use code SPICER for 40% off. Shopbeam.com/Spicer. All right. Rob Bresnahan, Congressman-elect from Pennsylvania. Rob, good to see you. Congratulations on your big win.
John, thanks for having me back. Great to be on this side of the wall here.
I told Ryan Mackenzie, your new colleague there in Pennsylvania, that you guys are like the gladiators. Like we've got this small little majority. Last cycle, New York, this side, Pennsylvania. It's got to feel cool going into orientation being like, yeah, we got the majority because of us in Pennsylvania.
David doesn't have much on us, specifically PA 7 and 8 here. And, we left it all on the field. And, we ran a great race. We stayed to the issues. And, with the message that, the Democrat Party threw at us just did not resonate.
So look, you come from a union background, right? I mean, you like a long family union background.
My grandfather was an IBW union lineman for 63 years.
Okay, so I'm looking throughout Pennsylvania. I got Scott Pressler on the show a bunch, Seth Kessel bringing down the counties. And from one county to another, all of them shifting to the right? Luzerne County, I mean, boom. And the question I have for you is, with your background, your family's background, was it working men and women, union, blue collar types that said enough of this BS from the Dems? We're shifting over. Was that the take? What's the takeaway, I guess, from Pennsylvania as to why not just your victory, but throughout Pennsylvania, it went left to right?
Sure, and specifically the unions, and I can't speak on behalf of the membership and the rank and file, but they care about everything that the rest of us care about. They care about an economy that works. They care about what's happening at the southern border. They care about crime within inside of their communities. And now they have a Republican that is going to be a friend of labor, that understands labor. I sat as the chairman of the Joint Apprenticeship Training Committee for one of the IBWs. I was on the health, wellness, and annuity funds. I negotiated, oh my gosh, I think it was 5 or 6 different collective bargaining agreements and never found ourselves in CIR. And listen, I'm all about careers. I'm about skilled trade. I mean, these are jobs that will never be replaced by AI. We are always going to need electricians, carpenters, painters, plumbers, HVAC people. I mean, these are all careers that create family sustaining jobs. I mean, on day one, you earn while you learn, you have $0 in debt. And at the same time, you're going to have a job the day you turn over.
So what do we need to do in terms of how, like, I know Linda McMahon is tapped for education. She's a big believer in choice. There's this stigma. I mean, people like Charlie Kirk are saying we don't need 4-year colleges. We need to do things like you're talking about, to train people, to focus on apprenticeships, to adapt to the world that we live in, instead of saying everybody must go to an Ivy League school or a 4-year institution and rack up a massive amount of debt. some people are really skilled at working with their hands, as you mentioned. How do we tweak the world in terms of like the loans and everything else we give out to adapt to that?
Well, I think something that Congress did an okay job of in the past was expanding what 529s can be utilized for, but there's still a lot of work to be done with that. If you're an IBW electrician, an apprentice, you're coming in, you have to buy your own tools, you have to buy your own textbooks, you need to show up at the training centers. And not everything in the 529s could be utilized for those things. We just beat a 10-year incumbent, all Ivy League graduates, and we're looking around at our team, and we have Pitt grads. I went to the University of Scranton, and it's where the rubber meets the road. But we also have to work with the apprenticeship programs, the Votech schools, and work align hand in hand with ultimately what the job and what we're trying to fill. I mean, think about a diesel technician. I mean, the diesel technician of 20 years ago was a lot different than what it is now. Everything is computerized, and we need to be adapting the curriculum that fits with what job ready placement looks like. So we have to be working hand in hand with the end user, the end employer, and with the actual technical vocational schools to be able to marry those two things together. So, and that's just going to be, having the employers with, the manufacturers, whether it's John Deere, whether it's Caterpillar, I mean, an equipment manufacturer, and being able to align with what the growing needs of the industries are.
How are the president has made very clear that he wants to slap tariffs on a bunch of things because he doesn't think that we're being treated fairly. How's that going to go over in Pennsylvania and with the kind of people that you're talking about specifically?
I understand what he's trying to do, and it's certainly something that we will evaluate case by case. There's certainly the threat of a tariff brings a lot of people to the bargaining table, but at the end of the day, life is already unaffordable for the average American, and we can't increase costs when we already have people deciding between heating their homes, putting food in their refrigerators, paying for vehicle maintenance. I mean, the average motorist spends over $1,000 a year just fixing their cars because of decrepit roadways and interstate systems. So we have to be targeted on the deployment of tariffs because we can't end the average American's ability to take care of themselves. But it's certainly something that I look forward to working with the rest of the conference on and the president because we have a responsibility to deliver for the American people.
Now, I know your family has a IBEW background, the electrical kind of stuff, but I mean, you've got, I mentioned this in a meeting earlier today. I just think the Republican Party of today is so different under Donald Trump. You had Sean O'Brien, the Teamsters, speaking at the convention. He met with Tom Emmer, the House Majority Whip there. And he's talking about how the Democratic policies, Sean O'Brien, that is the head of the Teamsters, the policies of the Democrats have crippled the American workforce. And I mean, that must take a lot for them to recognize. And they clearly are setting like an olive branch and an arm out to say, okay, guys, we want to work with people like Rob who get it, who understand the need. So what is the sort of agenda that you would tell Tom Emmer and the leadership guys? These are the three things that we need to do to keep these guys on our side, to keep A, it's good policy, and B, it's good politics.
Well, actually, I was in that meeting. I was one of the member elects that was invited because of my background in skilled trade and how I've advocated for, different skilled trade apprenticeship programs. But you know what? He realizes that the Democrat Party left them. It left the working base. It left the idea of just because you have a D or an R next to your name, we can all be for skilled trade and expanding those movements. Also, before I actually went back to the district over the weekend, and I met with the building trades of northeastern Pennsylvania. Now, these were traditionally people that all supported my opponent, even as far as doing press conferences a few weeks out with my opponent. And I said from day one, I never expect anyone to lose a friend to make a friend. But I was very adamant that on day one, you will have a friend. As long as there's a way that we can, as an employer and as a contractor, we can remain competitive, I'm all for creating the best and brightest skilled tradesmen and women, regardless of what their craft is going to be. Obviously, Davis Bacon is a big push, but
Do
after
you
meeting with
support Davis Bacon?
I have my entire life for sure.
Okay.
Again, responsibly, and
Which,
at the end
just
of the
so
day,
viewers know, that's the prevailing wage, union wage on federal projects. So, okay.
which is a little bit different than your run of the mill Republican. But at the end of the day, where my district is, we come from the days of anthracite coal mining. The down in downtown Scranton, we actually have monuments of different labor movements. But at the end of the day, it needs to be done responsibly, and we can't bankrupt the American taxpayer to fund these projects. So there's certainly a place when you're talking about a skilled trade. I mean, you're going through a 5-year apprenticeship program, and your ability to perform the work quicker, faster, more efficiently, there's a lot of additional benefits. My company would not have been able to grow 400% over a period of 10 years if we did not have the relationships, whether it was operating engineers, IBWs, laborers, and that was helped our ability to ramp up and ramp down with people that were ready to hit the ground running. I mean, listen, we're in the traffic signal business and power distribution after natural disasters, and recovering areas that have been totally decimated. We need people that are job ready on day one to provide services to the industry that is affected. And that's why I was so inclined to be involved on the Joint Apprenticeship Training Committee. So these next generation electricians or carpenters, whatever that case may be, is ready to do the job. That we don't have the time to afford a ramp up or a ramp down in an educational process.
You said the phrase bankrupt the American people. You won a very close race. Most members of Congress love to come home, and I get it, which is, here's what I got done for you. Here's the bridge. Here's the VA center, whatever. I believe that our debt has become an existential threat to our very existence. We are piling up debt. It's a massive competitive disadvantage with China, but it's also going to start overcoming our ability to do the basics of what we do as a government. At some point, the interest payments start becoming so big that we can't do the essentials, like protect our own country. I get it's not sexy. I get that this is not how politics normally works, but how concerned are you about the debt, and how willing are you to work with like an Elon Musk and a Vivek Ramaswamy in this effort that President Trump has sanctioned to look at government and to say, we got to get rid of waste and inefficiency?
We actually had a budget meeting this morning, and looking
Who's
at
we?
it, the freshman members of Congress coming in. And I was lucky enough to participate in there. And it is a very scary situation when we are spending more on interest than we are on our military budget. It's certainly alarming. It is not going down. And, we are financing our children and great grandchildren's futures off of, when you're spending almost $1 trillion a year in just debt service. It's very alarming. So there's going to be some challenging votes, and I obviously would welcome the opportunity to work with Elon Musk and seeing what he did with Twitter on day one. I remember the Twitter image of him carrying the sink out, but I mean, we have to make some really strong decision for what's best for the future of this country. I mean, it's peace through strength, and financial strength is something that needs to remain paramount. Something that I ran into when I came into my family business as chief financial officer is we had debt. I mean, not quite as bad as the federal government, but we were millions and millions of dollars in the hole. And I remember looking and spending $385,000 a year just in debt service. And I remember looking at our book value of equipment and how quickly everything was depreciating, and how our balance sheet was weak. And that's the first thing that we needed to do was put the finger in the dam and stop the water from flowing and start to rebuild our working capital. And ultimately, that's what allowed us to grow over the next 10 years. We had the banking and the surety relationships to take on bigger, better projects. But it all came back down to the financial strength and solvency of the organization. And I look at the federal government in a very similar capacity.
And do you think when you were in this meeting with these freshmen and they're throwing this at you, was there sort of a shared sense of, all right, guys, we got to do something, or, all right, we'll pass it on to the next Congress? I mean, what was the takeaway from the collective group?
I'll tell you, my takeaway was that there's no room to punt here. And you're
Yeah,
looking
but
at this.
Rob, you got a business background. I get it. You're smart. Like you get this. You
Thank
just
you.
walk through your business. You get this better than most of the clowns that are in Washington. And so I have no doubt you get it, but I'm more concerned about the people that don't have Rob's experience running a business and going, okay, how do we service the debt? How do we make costs? How do we do this? What I'm really trying to get at is, did you look around the room and go, hey guys, you're not getting the big picture here? Or was there collective gasping?
There was a lot of questions that would indicate that there is concern. And we have a very strong freshman class coming in here with a lot of people from different backgrounds, of whether it was federal prosecutors all the way down to business owners. And yes, I would say the consensus is that we have a dire problem. And I think that's a big reason why a lot of us decided to get into this. But also, it is just so hard to conceptualize how much debt $35 trillion looks like. I mean, you take $1 million, you stack it up on the back of a chair, $100 bills, it's 3 feet high. $1 trillion is 2.5 times higher than where the International Space Station flies. So trying to comprehend the deficit that we are running into, we need to be able to put this into a metric like, how do we work away at it? And, you have discretionary spending, and we still have to maintain our programs, our Social Security, our Medicare, because our senior citizens aren't in a position to have reduced funding on those things. We need to preserve that also for the next generation. But we also, just cannot continue to have omnibus massive spending bills without the accountability that the American people deserve. And again, it's a big reason why I decided to throw my hat into the ring and ultimately now become a member of Congress. Is fiscal responsibility has always been the paramount of who I am. And I've seen our company, and through being hands-on, you have to be able to take care of your own before you take care of everybody else.
So we have this super thin majority. Like I said, I mean, you and Ryan and everyone can take credit for, hey, look, Pennsylvania got you there. Are you willing to leverage that to say, hey guys, we need to be, for the good of our future, for the good of our children, our grandchildren, we need to stop spending. I'm willing to fight for some of this, because I think Rob, the problem is too often I've heard this over the last 10 years. Yeah, it's a problem. And then we vote yes on an omnibus and we go, you know what? The next time we're definitely going to do something. And then we wait till the next October. The deadline comes up. We go, we got to do it because the government will shut down. But next time. And we just keep doing that year after year after year until somebody's willing to say, guys, we need to stop the business as usual. Like, I think that's what's needed right now. Donald Trump's willing to fight. Or like, do we have a willingness among you and your freshmen to say, I'm willing to fight for the future of this country and stop some of the silly spending?
I can speak for myself, and absolutely. And I'll tell you, every single conference organization meeting that we've had, one of the top conversations was this debt. And it is, if you are not financially able to pay your bills, whether that's inside of your own personal residence or as a federal government, you are setting yourself up for a disaster. But there needs to be a line in the sand. But there's other ways that we can offset deficit is to make a pro-growth, pro-business environment by getting rid of the burdensome regulations. And you're looking at the growth of over, 2%. I think that's a very conservative number. And where we've been staggered here for the last, 4 years, there's opportunities to increase our growth. And we can get to those 3 and 4 percentile margins with the right leadership starting inside of the White House. And I'm very optimistic that that will be the case. And that will be, and I've said even on the campaign trail that, I don't know if we have a revenue issue. We can always be better and more profitable as a society, but we have a spending issue.
Yes.
And that's something that we need to look at go through with a fine-tooth comb.
Yeah. I mean, we have that's the problem. A revenue problem. You look around government, it's blatant, it's obvious. I mean, there's so many easy things that we could be doing if the focus was there. And unfortunately, that's why I'm saying I think a lot of good people go, well, unfortunately, we got to wait one more year, and the deficit and the debt continue to balloon.
Listen, there's going to be a year that there's not another year.
That's the point, though, is that it takes somebody to say, guys, we can't keep doing this. And that's the problem, is that everyone goes, well, next year we'll do it.
Listen, eventually these roosters are going to come home to nest.
Yes.
And you need to be able to stand up and say, hey, listen, like, I'm not going to finance this. We're already into my great grandchildren,
Right.
being saddled with debt. I don't think we need to go now 7 generations down the line that are ultimately going to be paying for frivolous spending. And obviously, looking at the reserve currency and making sure that our monetary policy remains strong. We want to remain the reserve currency for the world, and obviously, the value of the dollar and the power of the American government is what ultimately guarantees these things. But there needs to be a real hard look at how these programs are going to be funded. And there's not big percentage margin under the discretionary side that you have to be able to whittle through. But again, always looking at growth environments. I'm not sure hiring 87,000 new IRS agents is the right idea to squeeze 50 cents out of every single American is the right idea. In fact, we should be, doing anything that would inhibit growth, getting rid of those things and fostering those environments that would create better incentives.
100%. Rob, congratulations on your big victory. I'm excited for you to join the ranks of Congress and fight like heck to get us back on track. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me on.
You bet. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. Great show. Big all-star panel coming your way tomorrow. And then on Friday, I'm excited for this. Our friend Alex Clark, who has now become blown up sensation about the Maha movement, wellness, all this stuff. She's interviewing all the most amazing people on her podcast. She is at the forefront of this movement. She just testified in front of Congress with Ron Johnson and RFK and all the other folks. Yeah, she was there. She's going to come back. I want to get a sense of what she thinks of the nominees to make America healthy again, right? RFK, now Dr. Oz, and others who are leading this effort. So tune in tomorrow. Plus, Dr. Peter McCullough is going to be back with us to give us some insight as to what he thinks needs to happen first and second, et cetera. Big show headed your way. That's Friday. The panel's tomorrow. Wow, what a week. And then we got to go into next week before Thanksgiving. Don't worry, we got you covered. Anyway, thanks for being with us. We'll see you back here tomorrow on the morning meeting on my YouTube page. Plus, 6 o'clock, as always, the show on all platforms. Sign up for my free newsletter, SeanSpicer.com, and I'll see you back here tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.